The harsh sun beat down on the Texas prairie as Running Wolf rode across the open plains. The year was 1873, a time when the air itself was thick with tension between the Comanche and the white settlers. He was a respected warrior, a scout for his people, tasked with watching the borders of their territory after whispers of encroachment grew too loud to ignore. Then, the wind changed. It carried a scent that didn't belong, the smell of smoke. He pulled his painted horse to a halt, his eyes narrowing against the glare of the midday sun. He scanned the horizon, every sense on high alert. There, in the distance, a thin gray finger of smoke pointed to the sky from behind a cluster of cottonwood trees near the creek. Strangers. He muttered the word in his native tongue, his hand resting on the hilt of his knife. He nudged his horse forward, moving not with aggression, but with a deep, unsettling caution. As he drew closer, another sound reached him, carried on that same troubled wind. A woman's voice. High, thin, and stretched to the breaking point with desperation. Running Wolf slid from his horse, tethering it to a scrub oak. He moved on foot now, silent as a shadow through the tall prairie grass. He crept to the edge of a small clearing, his body low to the ground. What he saw made the air freeze in his lungs. A small cabin stood there, its wooden door shattered, hanging from a single leather hinge like a broken jaw. And outside, in the dirt, a woman with long auburn hair was on her knees. Her arms were wrapped around a small child, a human shield against the world. 3 rough-looking men circled them, moving with the lazy confidence of hungry wolves who knew their prey was trapped. "Please," the woman begged, and her voice cracked right down the middle. "Take whatever you want. Just leave us alone." The largest of the men, a beast with a scraggly beard and a dusty black hat, let out a cruel laugh. "Well, now, Mrs. Sullivan," he drawled, "what we want is this land. Your husband made a bad mistake settling here, and him being gone makes it mighty convenient for us to claim what should have been ours all along." "My husband will be back soon," she lied, and her arms tightened around the child. Running Wolf could see the terror in her eyes, but beneath it, there was something else. A flicker of iron, a will to fight. But it was the child that held his gaze. The boy was maybe 5 years old, but his features were unexpected. His eyes were dark and slightly slanted. His skin was a shade darker than his mother's, and his hair was black and straight as a raven's wing. He was a child of 2 worlds. "That half-breed kid ain't gonna save you," another man spat, his face twisted with contempt. "Jackson wants this land cleared by the end of the week, and that includes squaw men and their leftovers." Running Wolf's hand tightened on his knife. The Comanche had no love for settlers, but these men were different. They were vultures. They respected no law, no boundary, not of his people, and not of their own. The leader grabbed the woman's arm, yanking her brutally to her feet. "Time to go, Mrs. Sullivan. We'll be nice and escort you to the nearest town, right after we burn this place to the ground." The child let out a terrified cry, clutching his mother's skirt. "Mama, no." Something shifted inside Running Wolf. It was the boy, caught in the crossfire of a war he didn't start. It was the woman's courage, standing alone against the coming storm. He didn't hesitate another second. He stepped into the clearing. His presence was like a thunderclap in the dead quiet. The 3 men froze, their hands instinctively flying to the pistols at their hips. "Comanche!" one of them hissed, his eyes wide with a mix of fear and hatred. Running Wolf spoke, his English clear and accented, each word a stone dropped into a still pond. "This woman and child are under my protection. Leave now." The leader laughed, but it was a nervous, shaky sound. "Look here, savage. This ain't your business. This is white man's land." "No," Running Wolf replied, his voice as hard and flat as the prairie itself. "This land is Comanche. You trespassed twice, once on my people and once on this family." The standoff didn't last long. A pistol shot ripped through the air, but Running Wolf was already moving. He moved with the fluid speed that had earned him his name, ducking under the bullet and closing the distance in 3 long strides. His knife flashed once in the bright sun. The other men fumbled for their guns, but it was too late. The woman, seizing the moment, dragged her child behind a wooden water trough. From a hidden pocket in her skirt, she pulled a small Derringer pistol. The frontier had taught her that hope was a weapon you had to carry yourself. The fight was short, brutal, and decisive. When the dust settled, two of the men were on the ground, groaning in the dirt. The leader had scrambled onto his horse and fled, a coward disappearing back into the plains. Running Wolf turned. The woman was still there, aiming her tiny pistol at his chest with hands that trembled but did not fall. She shielded the boy behind her, her eyes wide with a new kind of fear. "I will not harm you," he said, slowly sheathing his knife. He raised his empty hands to show he meant no threat. "Those men were bad. They will come back. With more." She lowered the gun, just an inch. "Why did you help us?" His gaze shifted to the boy, who was now peeking around his mother's skirt. His eyes filled not with terror, but with a startling curiosity. "The boy," he said simply. "He has the blood of the people." The woman's face was a storm of emotions. Surprise, then fear, then a deep, weary resignation. "His father was killed 3 months ago. Cattle traders found him on the North Trail." Running Wolf nodded, a gesture of solemn respect. "Your husband?" "Yes," she whispered. "Thomas Sullivan. He wasn't the boy's birth father, but he loved him like his own." Her voice broke. "Thomas adopted Benjamin after I was widowed. My first husband." Running Wolf studied the boy again, more closely this time. The features spoke of a mixed heritage, yes, but there was something else in his eyes, a flicker of a ghost, a memory he couldn't quite place. "You and the boy are not safe here," he said, his voice firm. "Those men will return. You will come with me. To my camp. Until the danger is past." Fear flared in her eyes. "To a Comanche camp? They'll kill us." "No," he assured her. "Our chief, Gray Eagle, is a wise man. He sees the truth. Among my people, those who protect children are honored." He paused, choosing his next words with care. "What is your name?" "Sarah," she replied, her voice cautious. "Sarah Sullivan, and this is Benjamin." As the sun bled across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Sarah made her choice. She had nowhere else to go. The threat of Jackson and his men was a promise they would keep. She gathered the few belongings she could carry, and with a heart pounding with uncertainty, she allowed Running Wolf to help her and Benjamin onto his horse. As they rode away from the broken cabin, Benjamin's small hand reached out and touched the soft leather of Running Wolf's tunic. It was a gesture of pure, innocent trust, a silent word that spoke louder than any language. The Comanche camp was a sprawling collection of teepees, arranged in a great semicircle facing the rising sun. As Running Wolf rode in with Sarah and Benjamin, a wave of silence followed them. Warriors straightened their backs. Women paused in their work. Children stopped their games to stare. A white woman and a half-blood child, brought in not as captives, but as guests. It was a sight no one had ever seen. Sarah held Benjamin tightly, her heart hammering against her ribs. Every story she'd ever heard about Comanche raids screamed in her mind, but the steady, calm presence of Running Wolf beside her was a small anchor in a sea of fear. "Stay close," he murmured. "Chief Gray Eagle's teepee is ahead." An elderly woman stepped directly into their path. Her face was a beautiful map of wrinkles, each line telling a story of seasons and sorrows. She spoke sharply to Running Wolf in their native tongue, her hand gesturing with clear disapproval at Sarah and the boy. Running Wolf answered her calmly, his voice full of a respect that was clearly reserved for this woman. After a long moment, the woman's stern expression softened just a little. She stepped closer, her dark eyes studying Sarah, and then Benjamin. "This is Singing Bird," Running Wolf explained. "My mother. She asks why I bring a white woman to our camp." Sarah swallowed, her throat dry. "What did you tell her?" "The truth. That men threatened you and the boy, and that the boy has the blood of the people." Singing Bird reached out a weathered hand. To Sarah's astonishment, Benjamin stepped forward, away from the safety of her skirts, without a trace of fear. The old woman gently touched his face, tilting his chin toward the last rays of the dying sun. She spoke again, her voice much softer this time. Running Wolf nodded. She says the boy has the spirit of a Comanche. She can see it in his eyes. Before Sarah could process this, a commanding voice cut through the air. A tall, dignified man with streaks of gray in his long black braids approached them, flanked by two younger warriors. He wore an elaborate headdress of eagle feathers, and he carried himself with an aura of absolute authority. "Chief Gray Eagle," Running Wolf said, bowing his head slightly. The chief's piercing gaze moved from Running Wolf to Sarah, and finally settled on Benjamin. He spoke in Comanche, his tone questioning but not unkind. Running Wolf explained everything: the attack, the threat from the man named Jackson, the boy's heritage. Sarah watched, her fate being decided in a language she could not understand. After what felt like an eternity, Chief Gray Eagle nodded slowly. He looked directly at Sarah and spoke in halting but clear English. "Woman with brave heart, you are welcome. Boy with Comanche spirit, you are welcome. You will stay with us until the danger has passed." A wave of relief so powerful it almost buckled her knees washed over Sarah. "Thank you," she whispered, the words feeling small and inadequate. That night, they were given a place in Singing Bird's teepee. The old woman gave them buffalo robes for bedding and a meal of dried meat and corn cakes. No words were exchanged, but none were needed. The language of kindness is universal. Later, as Benjamin slept soundly beside her, Sarah sat by the teepee's entrance, watching the campfires flicker like fallen stars. Running Wolf came and sat beside her, a comfortable silence settling between them. "Thank you," she said at last. "If you hadn't come, I don't know what would have happened." He nodded. "Those men have no honor. They returned to your cabin tonight. They found it empty. It made them angry. They burned it to the ground." Sarah gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "How do you know?" "I sent 2 young warriors to watch from a distance. They returned an hour ago. They saw the fire light up the horizon." Tears welled in her eyes. The small home she and Thomas had built, the symbol of their hopes, was now just a pile of ashes. A new start, erased by greed. "Benjamin's father," Running Wolf said, his voice soft but direct. "He was Comanche?" Sarah tensed, then shook her head. The lie was pointless here. "No. He was Kiowa. His name was Swift Arrow." She took a deep breath, the story spilling out of her. "I was taken captive in a raid 6 years ago. My first husband was killed. I was terrified. But Swift Arrow, he was kind. He protected me." Running Wolf listened, his face unreadable in the flickering firelight. "We grew to care for each other," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "When Benjamin was born, Swift Arrow was so proud. He said our son was a sign of hope, a bridge between our people. But then there was a fight with buffalo hunters. Swift Arrow was killed." "How did you become free?" he asked. "The army negotiated a release of captives. I went back, with Benjamin. But—" She hesitated, the shame still a fresh wound. "It wasn't easy. People look at a woman with a half-Indian child. They see a traitor. Or worse. Thomas was different. He was a good man. He saw a child who needed a father. We married and moved here, to start over where nobody knew our past. Benjamin," Running Wolf said thoughtfully. "It is a strong name, for a boy who must walk between 2 worlds. Thomas chose it, from his Bible. It means son of my right hand. He truly loved him." Suddenly, a commotion at the edge of the camp shattered the peace. 2 warriors rode in at a full gallop, shouting urgently. Running Wolf was on his feet in an instant. "Wait here," he commanded, striding toward the growing crowd around the chief. Sarah watched, a cold knot of dread tightening in her stomach. The warriors' faces were grim. The chief's expression grew dark. Several other men began checking their weapons and moving toward their horses. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. When Running Wolf returned, his face was a mask of stone. "The men who work for Jackson. They rode to the fort. They told the army commander that a Comanche war party stole a white woman and child. They say we raided your cabin and took you as captives." "That's a lie," Sarah cried. "The army does not know that. They believe the story. They are preparing to ride at dawn, to rescue you. The knot in her stomach turned to ice. What will happen when they find me here? They will think you are a captive. They will take you away, and they may attack this camp for breaking the treaty. But I can tell them the truth. I came here by choice. Running Wolf shook his head, his eyes filled with a grim certainty. Men like Jackson twist the truth until it fits their needs. They will say we forced you to lie, or worse, they will say you have gone mad from captivity, that you have turned against your own kind. She knew he was right. A white woman choosing to live with the Comanche was a story no one would believe, especially if they ever found out about Swift Arrow. "What can we do?" she asked, her voice shaking. He was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. "There is a place, a sacred canyon, 3 days' ride from here. It is hidden, a place our people go when great danger comes." "You want us to hide?" He hesitated, then looked at her, his gaze intense. "Benjamin would be safe there." Sarah glanced back into the teepee, at the sleeping form of her son. Her whole life had become a desperate effort to protect him from a world that would judge him for the blood in his veins. Now they were trapped again, belonging nowhere. "When do we leave?" she asked. "Before the sun rises. A few warriors will escort us. My mother will come. She knows the old medicines." That night, as Sarah tried to sleep, her mind raced. But under the fear there was something else. A strange sense of homecoming. A feeling that in this place she was supposed to fear, her son might finally find the part of himself that had been missing. In the dark of the teepee, she watched him sleep, his face a perfect blend of two peoples, the high cheekbones of his Kiowa father, the fair skin of his mother, a child of two worlds, just as Running Wolf had said. "I will keep you safe," she whispered into the darkness, brushing the hair from his forehead. "No matter what it takes." The journey to the sacred canyon was a brutal test. For 3 days they rode through harsh, unforgiving terrain, staying off the open plains where an army patrol might spot them. Benjamin, to Sarah's amazement, was a natural rider. He rode with Running Wolf, his small face alive with the thrill of the adventure. Singing Bird was a constant silent presence. She couldn't speak to Sarah in words, but she showed her how to brew pine needle tea to ward off sickness, and how to treat saddle sores with crushed leaves. At night, around their small, smokeless fires, she would tell stories in the Comanche tongue, her hands and voice painting pictures that needed no translation. "What is she telling him?" Sarah asked Running Wolf on their second night. He listened to his mother for a moment. "She tells the story of the Star Child, an old legend, about a child who came from the sky to bridge the world of the spirits and the world of men. She says Benjamin reminds her of this child." Sarah watched her son, completely captivated by the old woman's story. He never knew anything about his Kiowa family. His father died before he could teach him. "Kiowa and Comanche are not the same," Running Wolf explained. "But we are cousins. Our stories share the same roots. A boy should know both sides of his blood." On the third day, the world changed. They entered a narrow crack in a massive wall of red rock. The path twisted and turned, a secret scar on the face of the earth. Then it opened up. They had arrived. The sacred canyon was a hidden paradise. A stream of clear water trickled through a valley floor lush with green grass and cottonwood trees, all of it protected by towering cliffs of red stone. It felt like a world untouched by time. A few other teepees were already there, and children were playing by the water. "Other families are here?" Sarah asked. Running Wolf nodded. "Some came when a sickness spread through the main camp last month. It is safer here." As they made their camp, Sarah felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The constant tension of life on the frontier, the feeling of always looking over her shoulder, it simply dissolved in the warm canyon air. The days fell into a gentle rhythm. Sarah learned to prepare hides with Singing Bird, her skill with a needle earning her quiet nods of respect from the other women. Benjamin, meanwhile, was in heaven. He ran with the other boys, learning to fish with a small spear and track lizards in the dust. He was finally free. One evening, Running Wolf found her sitting on a rocky ledge, watching Benjamin play by the stream below as the setting sun painted the canyon walls in fiery colors. "He is happy here," Running Wolf said, sitting beside her. It wasn't a question. "I've never seen him so alive," Sarah admitted. "At our cabin, he was always alone. In town, the other children, they were cruel." "Children see the truth that adults choose to forget," he replied. "They do not see boundaries until they are taught to build them." Sarah studied his profile against the sunset. She had come to rely on his quiet strength, his simple wisdom. "What happens when we have to leave?" He was silent for a long time. "Chief Gray Eagle will send a rider when it is safe to return. Or," he hesitated, "some families choose to stay, to live here, away from the conflict. The canyon provides everything we need." The idea was tempting. A life of peace, of safety. But could she truly leave her world behind forever? "I don't know if I could," she confessed, "but I am grateful for this place, for this time." Suddenly, excited shouts came from below. Benjamin was scrambling up the rocks toward them, his face beaming. "Mama! Running Wolf! Look!" He held up his hand. In his small palm lay a perfect arrowhead, carved from a beautiful piece of red stone, the same color as the canyon walls. Running Wolf took it gently, examining it with a look of reverence. "This is a great find, Benjamin. This stone is sacred. It was made by the ancient ones who lived in this canyon long before the Comanche." "Can I keep it?" Benjamin asked, his eyes wide. "It found you," Running Wolf said, handing it back. "The old ways say that when a sacred object chooses a person, it brings them strong medicine." "What kind of medicine?" "The medicine of belonging," Running Wolf said, ruffling the boy's hair. "This canyon has recognized you as one of its own." That night, as Benjamin slept with the arrowhead clutched in his hand, Sarah lay awake. The world was shifting under her feet. Her son's heritage, once a dangerous secret, now felt like a sacred gift. She thought of Swift Arrow, and for the first time she felt a sense of peace, knowing his son was finally connecting with his roots. Her thoughts were shattered by urgent voices outside the teepee. She slipped out to see Running Wolf talking to a warrior who had just arrived, his horse lathered in sweat. A messenger. "What is it?" she asked, a familiar dread creeping back into her heart. Running Wolf turned to her, his face grim. "The rider brings news from the main camp. Jackson's lies have taken root. He told the army captain that you were taken captive, and that Benjamin is a full-blooded white child, stolen in a raid." "That's insane. They only have to look at him to see it's a lie." "Jackson is a powerful man," Running Wolf said, his voice low and dangerous. "The new army captain does not know this land, or its people. He believes the story because it is simple, and it justifies his actions." The messenger spoke again, his voice sharp with urgency. "He says the army has offered a trade. If the Comanche return you and the boy, they will not attack the main camp." "But we're not captives," Sarah protested, her voice rising in panic. "They will not believe that. Jackson wants your land. To get it, he needs you gone, or dead, if you tell the army you chose to be with us." He didn't have to finish. She understood. They would declare her a traitor, unfit to raise her son and take Benjamin from her. Jackson would win. Everything would be lost. "What can we do?" she whispered, the canyon walls suddenly feeling like the closing walls of a trap. Running Wolf's eyes were troubled. "I could take you back. Speak the truth." "They won't believe you either. They'll call you a liar. Then we find proof. Show that Jackson's men attacked you first." "The cabin is gone," she cried in frustration. "It's all burned. There is no proof." A soft voice cut through the tense silence. Singing Bird had emerged from her teepee. She approached them and spoke to her son, her voice calm but firm, her hands gesturing toward the south. "What is she saying?" Sarah asked. "She says there is another way," Running Wolf translated. "An ancient path through the high walls of the canyon. It leads to a valley beyond. From there, we can reach the trading post at River Bend. There is a man there, a traitor named McAllister. He is known to be fair to all people. The army respects him. How far? 2 days. A hard ride. The path is dangerous. Sarah looked back at the teepee where her son slept, clutching a piece of his history in his hand. Hiding here was safe, but it wasn't a life. "We'll leave at first light," she said, her voice steady. "It's better to face the danger than to live in fear." Running Wolf looked at her, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of a smile in his eyes. "You have the courage of a Comanche woman," he said. The ancient path was a razor's edge, a narrow ledge carved into the sheer cliff face. Sarah rode with Benjamin held tight against her, trying not to look down at the dizzying drop below. Running Wolf led the way with Singing Bird and 2 young warriors following behind. The old woman had insisted on coming, claiming she'd had a vision. By midday, they reached a hidden valley, a green oasis where a spring bubbled up from the rocks. "We rest here," Running Wolf announced. As they rested, Singing Bird took Benjamin aside, showing him how to identify plants and teaching him Comanche words. The old woman had a special fondness for the boy. "She seems to love him," Sarah said to Running Wolf. He nodded, a small smile touching his lips. "She says he reminds her of someone. My younger brother. He was lost many years ago, in a battle." The casual mention of such a deep wound startled Sarah. "I'm so sorry." "It was his time," Running Wolf said, though his eyes told a different story. "My mother believes that sometimes a spirit returns in a new form. Not the same person, but carrying the same light." He watched his mother show Benjamin how to weave a small doll from grass. "My brother's name was Little Hawk. He was curious, like Benjamin, and he was never afraid." Their moment of peace was shattered. One of the warriors who had been scouting ahead came running back, his face pale. He spoke in rapid Comanche, pointing back the way they had come. "What is it?" Sarah asked, jumping to her feet. "Riders!" Running Wolf said, his expression hardening into stone. "They are on our trail. 6 of them, not soldiers. Jackson's men." His voice was ice. "They are not here to rescue you. They are here to make sure you never talk." He issued quick commands. They had to move now. "We cannot outrun them in the open," he explained to Sarah. "We must reach the forest on the other side of this valley before nightfall. The trees will hide our trail." They rode with a desperate urgency. Benjamin, sensing the fear, clung to Sarah without a word. Just as the sun was setting, they reached the edge of a vast pine forest that climbed the side of a mountain. "We make camp here," Running Wolf said. "No fire." The night was a torment of shadows and imagined sounds. Sarah held Benjamin close, her body rigid with fear. At dawn, Running Wolf returned from scouting, his face grim. "They camped in the valley," he said. "Their trail shows they know where we are going. They are trying to cut us off from the trading post." "How could they know?" Sarah whispered. "Perhaps someone in the main camp betrayed us. Or they simply guessed." He crouched beside her, his gaze intense. "We must change our route. A longer path, through the mountains." Less than an hour later, disaster struck. As they were crossing a steep, rocky ravine, Singing Bird's horse slipped on loose shale. The old woman cried out as she fell, her leg twisting beneath her at an unnatural angle. Running Wolf was at her side in an instant. His face was a mask of pain as he examined the injury. "It is broken," he said, his voice flat. "She cannot ride." Despair hit Sarah like a physical blow. They were trapped. They couldn't leave her. But if they stayed, Jackson's men would find them. They would all die. Singing Bird, her face pale with pain, spoke firmly to her son. She gestured towards Sarah and Benjamin, her expression resolute. "What is she saying?" Sarah asked, tears streaming down her face. "She says you must go on, without her," Running Wolf said, his voice choked with emotion. "The 2 young warriors will stay with her. They will hide her and protect her. You, me, and Benjamin must continue. It is the only way. We can't just leave her here." He met her gaze, his own eyes filled with an unbearable sorrow. "My mother has made her choice. She knows what is at stake." After a heart-wrenching farewell, they pressed on, just the 3 of them now, a heavy silence hanging between them. The mountains grew steeper, the path harder. By late afternoon, the sky turned a bruised purple. A storm was coming. Just as the first drops of rain began to fall, they found it. A small, abandoned trapper's cabin, tucked into the side of the mountain. It was crude, but it was shelter. Inside, as the storm raged, Benjamin, exhausted, fell asleep instantly. Sarah sank onto a stool, the weight of their journey crushing her. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I brought this on you. On your mother." Running Wolf shook his head. "This trouble comes from men like Jackson, not from a mother protecting her child." He looked at her, his usual stoicism gone, replaced by something else. "I helped you that day because of the boy, but also because of you. I saw a strength in you, the heart of a warrior." Their eyes met across the small, dark cabin. An understanding passed between them, something deeper than words. The moment was shattered by a new sound, cutting through the roar of the storm. Hoofbeats. Running Wolf was at the window in a flash, peering through the rain-streaked glass. "3 riders," he whispered, his hand on his knife. "Coming this way." Sarah scooped up the sleeping Benjamin, her heart pounding. "Jackson's men," she breathed. "Stay back," he commanded, positioning himself beside the door, a silent predator ready to strike. The riders drew closer. A voice called out, muffled by the rain. Then, another call. This one in clear English, startlingly close. "Hello, the cabin. Anyone in there?" The voice wasn't threatening, but it could be a trick. "Who calls?" Running Wolf answered, his voice a low growl. "Name's McAllister, from the trading post, got caught in this blasted storm." Sarah gasped. McAllister, the man they had risked everything to find. After a tense negotiation through the closed door, Running Wolf opened it. An older white man with a gray beard stood there dripping wet, flanked by 2 other men. He took in the scene with shrewd, intelligent eyes. "Well now, a Comanche warrior, a white woman, and a sleeping child. This is an interesting sight to find in my old trapping cabin." "Mr. McAllister," Sarah stepped forward, her voice trembling with relief. "We were coming to find you. My name is Sarah Sullivan." Recognition flared in the old trader's face. "Sullivan? The widow from Cottonwood Creek? The army's out looking for you. They say you were taken by the Comanche." "That's a lie," she said, her voice ringing with conviction. "Jackson and his men attacked us. They burned our home. Running Wolf saved us. We went with his people for protection." McAllister looked from her determined face to Running Wolf's stoic one. "Jackson, you say?" He let out a long breath. "That explains a lot. The man's a cancer on this land." He sat down heavily on a bench. "You'd better tell me everything." As the storm outside began to fade, the story poured out of them. McAllister listened, his eyes missing nothing. By the time the sun rose, a plan had been formed. "Here's what we'll do," McAllister said. "I'm taking you to Fort Richardson myself. The new captain is young, but he's not an idiot. My word carries weight around here. And your testimony, Mrs. Sullivan, will put the nail in Jackson's coffin." "What about Running Wolf?" she asked, a knot of fear tightening in her chest. "I'll send one of my men ahead," McAllister assured her. "Request safe passage. I have an understanding with the fort. He will be safe." Their journey to the fort was swift. True to McAllister's word, they were met not with hostility, but with respect. In his office, Captain Wilson listened to their story, his initial skepticism slowly replaced by a grim understanding. He'd heard rumors about Jackson's methods before. "I'll send a patrol to your cabin site immediately," the captain said. "And I have other reports to look into." He turned to Running Wolf. "Please convey my gratitude to Chief Gray Eagle. He protected an American citizen when our own laws failed to. That is an act of honor." Leaving the fort, with the Army's promise of protection, Sarah felt like she could finally breathe again. McAllister had offered them a place to stay at the trading post. A new beginning. "What will you do now?" Running Wolf asked as they rode side by side, Benjamin asleep in her arms. "McAllister knows of a small homestead near the post," she said. "We can start again there. It's, it's closer to your people's territory than our old home. He nodded, understanding what she wasn't saying. It is good land. Benjamin can visit. He can learn both ways. Would he be welcome? He is a child of two worlds, Running Wolf said, his eyes meeting hers. He will always be welcome. I will make sure of it. As they crested a hill, the trading post came into view below, a small outpost nestled between the forest and the prairie. A meeting place. A bridge. Singing Bird called him a bridge between worlds, Sarah said softly. A rare true smile transformed Running Wolf's face. My mother is wise. The old ones say such children are a gift. They see with two sets of eyes. They understand with two hearts. Benjamin stirred in her arms, blinking in the morning sun. Are we home, Mama? Sarah looked at the strong, silent man beside her, and then at the new horizon ahead. Soon, Benjamin, she whispered. Very soon. Home wasn't a building of wood and nails anymore. It was a place of acceptance, a place where her son could be whole. The journey was far from over, but for the first time, the path ahead was not filled with fear, but with hope. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more tales of unexpected love and frontier justice.